at the moment, this site looks pretty good. Like we could keep it as it is, deliver it to Caroline and say, here you go. Now, obviously what we want to do is start playing with the typography. And what we're going to use is this new variable font called Bandine's Strange. Now, what we're going to do is, of course, we've already added the file to our project. We added it when we uploaded the images. So what I'm going to do is, first of all, use this as our font face. We are hosting our own font in this instance. So first thing I'm going to do is go right to the top of my style.css and add a little bit of space. So I'm going to do @font-face, and we're going to give our CSS some instructions to install this font. So what do we want to call this? Well, my font family name is going to be Bandine's Strange. Now I'm calling it Bandine's Strange. It could just be called Bandine's. It could be called Rick's font, but because there's Bandine Strange and Bandine Sans, I'm just going to call it what it's called. So next line, what we want to do is actually tell it where it lives. So mine is src, and this is in the URL, and in round brackets, here it is down here, Bandine's-strange. So Bandine's-strange. And this is a .ttf file. So just making sure I'm using the right one, .ttf. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is change my font family from Arial to be what? Well, unsurprisingly, I've called it Bandine Strange. I'm going to call it Bandine Strange as well. Bandine's Strange. So this is installing the font, and then this is using the font. So I'm installing it and I want it to be everywhere on our site. So now if we look at it, what we'll see is we have Bandines and Bandines in the same place, not Arial anymore. Now, of course, what I want to do is change some of the typography of this. My default text size on this isn't actually 16, it's 60. So the first thing I'm going to do is just change that. So here, I'm going to do 60. So it should look a little bit bigger. Now, how come it's just my navigation that looks bigger? Well, at the moment, of course, what we can see is in our H1, we want to overwrite that and say it's 24px, it's smaller than 60, and its font weight is 700, which isn't what we want. So I'm going to remove in my H1 this font size and this font weight for now. So what we have here, just in our H1, is where it lives on the page. The position is fixed, top left, and it's above all the images below it. So what we should see now is Caroline Wade, and we've got about and contact. So how do we go about starting to change things? If I want to add a hover state on our final one, this kind of changes very, very dramatically. So how do we actually go about doing this? Well, just like we did in our last project, we're going to use the font variation settings, but which one? And again, there isn't really great instructions on here to tell you how to use it. So if you scroll down and you're kind of like looking through stuff, you're like, how do I actually go about using this? Well, again, I had to inspect element and kind of see what was going on. So I made the kind of font weight change a few and the kind of changed the strange width as well. And then I clicked inspect. Let's see what's going on. And in here we have this font variation weight and width, or well, weight without any vowels in there. So we're going to use the same kind of idea here. So what we're going to do is when we hover this, we're going to change the font variation settings to a different weight and a different width as well. So how do we go about this? Well, the first thing I want to do is do this on my links. The first thing I want to do on my links is set a weight on these links itself. I want it to be a little bit thinner and maybe a little bit wider as well. So just on the links in the top corner, I'm going to do a font variation settings. So this is special just to variable fonts only. The first thing I want to do is change the weight. So just like we had from inspect element, I'm going to do WGHT. And this one is going to be, for now, let's make it 100. 100 is the kind of like very thin one if we kind of make it down. So weight really, really thin, and the strange width is down to 100. This is that kind of default one. Let's make it that. Weight is that, comma, the width, or WDHT, no I in width, is going to be 100 as well. Let's see how this looks. So at the moment, this is a little bit thinner because we set it to be not the default. The default is kind of a little bit thicker, which is looking something more like that. We want it to be a bit thinner. So we've changed the kind of thinness of this. We also now want to change it on hover. How do we do that? Well, unsurprisingly, we add an A with a hover state. So underneath here, we're going to add in a colon hover. A colon hover means any A tag which is hovered. What do we want to do? Curly brackets, we want to do something to this. What do we want to change? Well, we want to change the font variation settings. So font variation settings, kind of similar to above. Weight, we're going to make it a little bit thicker. Well, a lot thicker, 900, comma. We'll change the width as well to be 200. Now we can change this to be a bit wider. Let's say we want it to be really strange. So this goes up to 800. We're making it just 200-ish. So just a little bit bigger. So we can see and play around with this and kind of work out what it should be. So now I've got this kind of font variation settings for the default and on hover as well. Let's see this in action. So on preview, if I hover now, you can see this get really thick and wider at the same time. Now, one of the good things that we can add in as part of variable fonts is some kind of transition between the two. So how do we do that? Well, if we go back to our style, again, it's how it looks. We want to do this on hover on and hover away. So we don't want to just do it on here on a.hover. We want to do it in both directions. So what do I want to change? What do I want to transition? I want to transition between the font dash variation dash settings. How quick do I want to do this? Well, 2 seconds feels quite long because I want it to be fairly instant. I'm actually going to shorten this to 0.2s, 0.2 seconds. So now what we'll see is if I go back to the page, I'll kind of have this hover state on each of these links. There we go, looking very, very nice. Now, on the final design, of course, what I want to do is actually change this on scroll. So how do we go about doing that? Next thing we're going to do is introduce a new concept. We've done HTML, which is in here. And we've also done style, which is in here. The next thing we need to do is add some kind of interaction layer to this. And the way that we add interaction layer is using a new thing called JavaScript.